Well, I think I'm somewhat confused about what's happened with the science portfolio. It's not just completely with the industry portfolio. There's also parts of it within education which will make it a somewhat schizophrenic policy area. And this is something that, to me, is strange, Latika. I mean, we've got a minister for sport, for God's sake, but we don't have a minister for science. We've got a very costly workforce. The cost of doing business in Australia is high, which means that we need to be in that high-tech space to afford those high wages. And yet it appears that we don't have a coherent policy on it. I guess this is the problem with not having people of scientific bent in decision-making processes where people don't understand science generally.
Now, Tony Abbott's Tony Abbott's not due to sign in his ministry until tomorrow morning. Is it too late for him to make this change that you believe is required?
No, I don't believe it is too late. The thing is that what we need to have is an utterly coherent response to the problem of science. I mean, science is in crisis, quite frankly. When you have a look at the so-called STEM area, science, technology, engineering and mathematics, you have problems with it going all the way from the bottom of primary school through postdoc and beyond. The quality of students going into universities is reducing. We're not an innovative society in the way that we should be. Industry doesn't interact with the research community in the way that it should. The Australian Research Council, the ARC, is problematic as well in the way that it goes about awarding research grants. And, there are numerous issues related to science that need to have a very clear focus, and certainly splitting it into two portfolios is not going to provide that clear focus.
So out of 1 out of 10, how would you rank Tony Abbott's decision to not have a specific science ministry?
I would rank it very low, but I mean, I'm not going to put a number on it.
All right, now, does Tony Abbott have a woman problem, or Dennis Jensen, are there really only 6 women in the entire coalition capable of stepping into senior roles?
Latika, Tony doesn't have a woman problem, but in my view, it's entirely appropriate that what you do is you choose a front bench completely based on an assessment of the abilities and the talent of the people involved, and let the numbers fall as they...
Do you think Tony Abbott has selected a front bench entirely on merit when you look across at all the faces?
No, I don't, but that's political reality as well. I mean...
what do you mean by that?
We all know that... Well, there are Senate House of Reps balances, there are balances to do with the states, and then there are also internal political power, if you will, issues that you take into consideration when determining what your front bench makeup is.
So who do you think is on the front bench that's probably there due to those factors rather than merit?
I'm not going to go into that, Latika. I'm not going to discuss who should or who shouldn't be.
Now, I take on board what you say. You don't believe Tony Abbott has a women problem, yet many other Liberals privately believe that his paid parental leave policy worth $5.5 billion is one way of addressing that said issue. Do you think that price is too high given the fiscal environment right now?
Yes, I do. Pardon me. Yes, I do, Latika. The other thing is, I think that all of the aspects with this need to be thoroughly thought through. The problem is this is an idea that someone has had, which has then become policy, and I believe that it hasn't been adequately thought through at all. And I believe that this should probably be something that goes through to the Productivity Commission. After all, this is something that we're talking about in terms of productivity and women in the workforce. Take it to the Productivity Commission and see if it actually makes sense in a cost-benefit analysis.
Do you see yourself voting for this policy?
I'd have to wait and see where the policy goes, Latika. I mean, right at the moment, it's fair to say that I have problems with it. I don't know how much change there is likely to be.
What are your main concerns with this policy?
Well, first of all, the issue of where the money is coming from. I mean, some of it is coming where you're talking about the issue of franking credits with that 1.5% impost on major industry. You're essentially whacking the seniors who have money invested that have saved for their own retirement. And it's been put to me that women in that category have been whacked on both sides. When they were young, they were actually fired when they got married or had kids. So they suffered a significant disadvantage then, and then they're being whacked now to effectively pay for some of this paid parental leave scheme. During the election campaign, I got something like about 50 or 60 communications from constituents, and I've got to tell you, not one of them supported the scheme. My constituency is not in favour of it. So, at the least, I'd want to see a cost-benefit analysis for this scheme to show that it actually has the significant benefit that it's argued that it does have.
Are you worried, Dennis Jensen, that Tony Abbott is walking away from committing to a budget surplus anytime soon? And in your ideal view, when should the budget be returned to surplus now that you're in government?
No, Latika, I'm not concerned that Tony's walking away from a commitment to budget surplus. I mean, obviously, getting to that surplus, the devil goes into the details. And I do think that we need to have a very thorough handle on exactly what the numbers are in every single portfolio area. I mean, I think it's very difficult to commit to a specific date.
When should you get back to surplus,
well,
ideally?
The answer to that is, frankly, as soon as possible. But the reality is we need to have a look at the numbers and see how soon realistically we can come to surplus. And I mean, I think that putting a number on it is less important than making sure that your policy settings are right and being very prudent with your budget in getting to that surplus.
And just finally, Greg Hunt's already shaved $300 million from the Direct Action Climate Change Plan. Is that a policy area where you could see more savings, perhaps?
Potentially. I mean, I believe I tend to agree with the figures that are that the modelling that has been done that indicates that the money that's been put up would get the reduction. In my view, a lot of the projects, a better way of going about it, I think, would be actually to fund energy research. The simple fact is people know that I'm somewhat sceptical on anthropogenic causation, but even if you were, of the worst catastrophic sort of results theory, you would want to have a solution that actually does something globally. And I agree with Bjorn Lomborg here, where if something's not economic, it's not sustainable.
And so is direct action economic in your view?
Well, elements of it clearly will be. I guess the point that I'm making, Latika, is on the larger scheme of things, in terms of energy generation, the best thing that you can do is put the money in the cheap end of the innovation pipeline, that's the research end, to get the energy storage and so on technologies that you require, which will actually mean that the generators will actually pick up those technologies as an economic issue
Dennis
rather
Jensen,
than being forced to do so.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we've run out of time. Thanks for joining us on ABC News 24.
Thank you, Latika.